Hello, this is David Eckman and Shiwei Wu.
这是艾克曼博士和吴希伟。
And we are working through the workbook Becoming What God Intended.
我们正在学习《成为合神心意》这本教材。
We're actually at the halfway point now.
我们现在已经学了差不多一半。
At Chapter 6.
在第6章。
And Chapter 6 is on acceptance and trust.
第6章是有关接纳和信任。
And the first reading concerns the reality that trust is important in God's family.
第1讲讲到信任在神的家里是非常重要的。
And the scripture reading we're looking at is Romans chapter 4.
今天我们要看的经文是罗马书第4章。
Romans chapter 4 verses 6 through 8.
第6节到第8节。
Romans 4 argues that faith was central in the Old Testament and is central in Christianity.
第4章是讲到信心对于从旧约到新约一直都是很重要的。
And before we look at these verses, I want to make some comments.
在我们学习这个之前，我有一些话要讲。
In this world, when we talk about righteousness,
当我们谈到义的时候，
it always considers righteousness and unrighteousness,
我们总是想到义或者是不义这个观念，
or being right or being wrong.
或者是对或者是错。
And because we always approach it with either it's right or wrong attitude, it creates a problem for us.
如果我们总是用对或错的观点来看，其实是有问题的。
And the problem is a very simple one.
很简单的一个问题。
God's righteousness has nothing to do with right or wrong.
就是神的义与对跟错、是跟非是不一定有直接的联系。
Because God's righteousness comes from the heart of the Trinity.
因为神的义是从三一神的关系来的。
And because that's its source, there's never any wrong in it.
因为是在那个源头里面，从来里面没有什么错的东西在里边。
So when God grants His righteousness,
所以神给我们他的义的时候，
it never considers the person to be wrong.
他从来不再想说这个人有什么错误的地方。
Instead, God's righteousness is complete acceptance.
而神的义是完全的接纳的意思。
And in that acceptance, He works with us as we are.
在这个情况下，他把我们当成完全是义，就是神可以就着我们的本相来对我们做工。
Since we have done wrong things,
因为我们做过错事，
and we are weak,
我们也是软弱的，
God works with those realities
神就着这些现实来做工。
so He can make us like Christ.
他要让我们好像成为像基督的样式。
So define righteousness as complete relational acceptance.
所以神的义完全是关系性的接纳，
And not simply being not wrong.
而不是简单的对或者是错一个标准。
So let's take a look at Romans chapter 4.
那我们来看罗马书第4章
Verse 6 says,
第6节说。
Even as also David says, the blessing of the man to whom God is not reckoning righteousness apart from the law.
大卫也是这样说，那不靠着行为而蒙神算为义的人是有福的。
David spoke of righteousness apart from the law.
大卫讲到在律法之外的那个义。
And verse 7 says this,
第7节说，
Blessed are the ones whose iniquities are pardoned,
过犯得蒙赦免的人，这人是有福的，
and whose sins are covered.
他的罪恶得到遮盖。
And notice it deals completely with being wrong and it sets it aside.
过犯都已经完全放在一边了，
And it's not an issue with God.
对于神并不是一个问题。
And that person and those persons are pronounced very blessed.
而这个人称为是很有福的。
It's a wonderful reality.
这是一个非常奇妙的。
Then verse 8 says this,
第8节说，
Blessed is the man whom God will absolutely never reckon sin.
神绝对不再计算其罪的，这人是有福的。
And reckon means to count against, to assume sin.
计算就是数算你的恶。
And Paul quoted that God will absolutely never do that.
而保罗引用大卫的这句话说：“神绝不再计算你的恶。”
So that means the person exists in a guilt-free environment.
所以这个意思就是说，这个人是在神面前完全是无罪的。
What that means is God can work with us as we really are.
所以神就着我们的本相来向我们做工。
Weaknesses and all, He can work with us as we are.
尽管我们这么软弱，
Trust is very important
信任是非常重要的，
because it brings us into the righteousness of God,
因为它为我们带来神的义，
the righteousness that the Trinity has.
是三一神的义。
We can enter into that and never be counted as having sin.
我们进入三一神的那个义，我们的过犯再也不被计算。
So that God can work with us as we really are.
所以神可以就着我们的本相来对我们做工。
So that's reading 1,
这是第1讲，
and we'll see you shortly as we look at reading 2 in the workbook.
我们会在第2讲再继续与你见面。
The Lord bless you.
神祝福你。